Good morning, members, and good morning to the viewing public. Uh, Before us here in the Committee on Ways and Means is the Department of Corrections. Um, Before we proceed, I believe we have a quorum, and pursuant to the OGA, the agenda has been passed out in advance. I believe every member has one. So I call this Ways and Means hearing with the Department of Corrections to order. And with that, I would like to request a motion to adopt today's agenda. There has been a motion and has been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. And before we proceed, is there anyone in the public that would like to make comments? Being there's none, first, foremost, thank you, Commissioner, for making your time available to us this morning to discuss the FY24 um, budget for the Department of Corrections. And before I turn over the mic to you, I would like to introduce the members to you and your um, department. I am Ralph Yumo, the chairman for Ways and Means. To my left, I have the vice chair, Blas Attal, representative. Uh, to down on the floor, we have chairman of SNAL, Representative John Paul Sablan. To his left, we have Representative Angelo Camacho. And to his left, we have Representative Roman Beneventi. To his left, we have Congresswoman Marissa um, Flores, chairwoman of JGO. And uh, across the aisle, we have Representative Denita Yangtamay. And to her left, we have Representative Joseph Flores. Also, I'd like to introduce the OMB. Should anyone has some questions, Ms. Vicky, thank you for making yourself present. Um, and of course, we have our legal assistant, Ms. Claire Sablan, along with TG, our fiscal analyst, and John, our counsel for today. And we have John Diaz, our IT, covering the um, coverage today. And with that, uh, Commissioner, you have the floor for your opening remarks.
Test, test. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Before I begin, I want to go ahead and introduce my team. To my right, I have Miss Joanna Lizama, and then Lieutenant Jack Sablan, and to my left, Miss Rita Iglesias and Miss Monette Ogo, and then OMB, Miss Villagomez and Miss Igual. Yeah. So with that, Alfarades Antero, buenas and good morning, Mr. Chairman and this honorable committee. Thank you for the opportunity for your time to meet with me this morning. Over the next 3 years, I envision our Department of Corrections to deliver public safety through rehabilitation and operational excellence. The Northern Mariana Islands Department of Corrections will carry out its mission by incarcerating inmates safely in our correctional facility, providing rehabilitation opportunities and programs designed for successful reentry. During incarceration, community standard healthcare services are provided to inmates, opportunities for vocational skill development, educational opportunities from literacy to undergraduate degrees, and substance abuse treatment to increase the likelihood of successful and sustained reentry upon release. DOC will supervise offenders released to community supervision using a continuum of services and evidence-based programs. DOC will return to custody offenders who choose not to engage in their own rehabilitation and continue to present a threat to public safety. I will embrace challenges and successes as opportunities to continuously improve our operations, resulting and an exceptional return on investment for the citizens of the Northern Mariana Islands, which will one day serve as a national model for corrections. In doing this, I will implement strategies that will align with our vision by sustaining a well-run organization through maintaining safety, security, and accountability with sound population management and critical infrastructure improvement. I will pursue staff engagement by reviewing historical vacancies and turnover, then implement initiatives to increase employee retention by utilizing available compensation strategies, expanding communication and leadership training, and ensuring a safe work environment. I will improve inmate quality of life by supporting and increasing opportunities of inmate programming, religious services, visitation, education, and job training through the deployment of new technology and upgrading critical infrastructure. I will work on fostering strong relationships with our community and external stakeholders, healthcare, mental health care contractors, and work to improve upon and sustain excellent inmate health care provision using data to manage performance and establishing specialized training for contractors. I will launch effective recidivism reducing programs by improving overall systems outcomes. Initiatives include increasing the treatment and program capacity to meet the needs of the inmate population and improving communication in the transition from inmate to offender. I will work to improve public confidence by increasing engagement with external stakeholders and enhancing customer service. I will further develop community partnerships by increasing public awareness and confidence. Now, I know it sounds a little familiar. This is a blurb from my confirmation hearing, and you're going to see why I wanted to kind of revisit this a little bit as we move forward. I will demonstrate integrity by doing the right things even when no one is looking and leading with full transparency. I'll demonstrate open-mindedness by being self-aware and sensitive to other beliefs, cultures, ways of thinking, and by possessing a growth mindset. I will demonstrate gratitude by being thankful every day for God blessing me with my family, friends, health, and opportunities that I am presented with. I will demonstrate caring by being of service to our community, staff, and inmates with empathy and compassion. I'll demonstrate responsibility by holding myself accountable and taking extreme ownership for my actions, as well as holding others accountable when necessary. I will demonstrate objectivity by not being quick to judge, looking at all sides and gathering all the facts before formulating an opinion. I'll demonstrate willingness by exhibiting readiness, eagerness, and thinking outside of the box, standing up for what I believe in and taking action when necessary. I will demonstrate humility by serving and leading with a pure heart, free of pride and arrogance. I have no illusions that the road ahead of me will be easy, either for the short term or the long haul. I assure you that I will meet the challenge with both humility and courage. I will continuously work to be the change I wish to see in our community by leading from the front, encouraging independent thinking and team empowerment. Members of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands House of Representatives, I look forward to working with you during this budget hearing process. Donkulana Sijus Masi, Giliso, thank you, and Nayonu Marianas.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, and thank you again for making yourself present and for giving time to um, answer some questions from the members. And before we proceed, I want to recognize our Senator JGO down there, Senator Babauta. I think she missed the chamber or this side of the house. No. Thank you for blessing us with your presence. As you know, corrections has always have the hard times of managing obviously personnel. Overtime has always been an issue for the last 4 or 5 years that I've been involved with Ways and Means, and the corrections has always an average of over anywhere between 700,000 all the way as high as 3.9 over the budget. So, is there any plans to try to reduce that this fiscal year?
So before I answer that question, Mr. Chairman, I want to kind of continue on with the slide.
Oh, okay.
That's my fault. I should have continued to speak, but So,
Okay, I'll yield back to you.
so with that, you know, we all know the Department of Corrections was created in August 6th of 2004 under Public Law 14-25 and was authored by our Honorable Lieutenant Governor David Apatang. I learned that last week. He authored that, and that's pretty awesome. So you see, it's on April 27 of 2011 under Executive Order 2011-04. The Juvenile Corrections Unit was under DYS and is transferred to the Department of Corrections. So we house approximately 180 inmates. We currently house approximately 2 juveniles, and I apologize, that's maybe around 10 women at this time. Our facility can handle up to about 500 inmates. If we're able to acquire the number of beds needed, we could probably go up to maybe a little over 520, 530. We spend approximately $600,000 annually on catering, and we have approximately 157 FTEs in our department. As you see on this slide right here, the key numbers to kind of focus on is the DOC's main budget from fiscal year 2022 to the governor's submission of 2024. You can see it went from in 2022 3.6 mil to 2024, which is about 4.5 around there. So as you can see, it's over 90% of our budget is in personnel costs. Okay. And on this section, for the juvenile section, key numbers to focus on as well for this one is in fiscal year 2022, about $500,000, over a little bit over $500,000 to the governor's submission of 2024, about 425,000 approximately. So as you can see again in this one as well on the slide, we're looking over 90% of our budget on personnel costs. I'm currently with my team, with my department, we're looking at restructuring. We want to restructure our key management positions to be aligned with the national corrections and prison organizations. As you all know, I come from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Well, I retired from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Prior to that, I worked for the Hawaii Department of Public Safety for a few years. We'd like to convert director positions to warden positions. By converting, and we also would like to convert captain positions to assistant warden or associate wardens and align their salary equal to police majors. We currently have 1 medical doctor in our budget. 2 full-time physician assistants will lower the cost and be able to cover shifts beyond 4:30 p.m. and weekends. In alignment to cost savings, 2 physician's assistants can be scheduled beyond the 4:30 and during the weekends, with the 1 nurse sufficing and complementing the 2 PAs. We're looking at with this proposal or this plan having 24/7 coverage, which would mitigate the amount of trips to the emergency room after hours. Since coming on post, there's a pattern. Monday through Friday, about after 5 p.m. when admin leaves, we see an uptick in emergency room visits. And by having and implementing this plan and restructuring it, we would definitely mitigate a lot of that and handle it in-house and be able to triage those inmates. Inmates will be inmates. They're gaming. They're constantly trying to game the system. Oh, my heart hurts. I'm having chest pains. And that point, then, there's no medical person on site during after hours. So at that point, our personnel have to take them to the ER where they could potentially schedule a drop or a pickup for contraband and whatnot, and it floods the ER as well. So, a lot of that can be, again, mitigated with the implementation of restructuring. So when DOC first opened in 2008, It had a full operational kitchen facility to cook and feed over 500 inmates. Well, the kitchen has not been used since 2008, and DOC has relied exclusively on catering services for the inmates. DOC would like to request 250,000, quarter of a million to renovate and upgrade the kitchen facility. RFP for PPP to manage the kitchen, train and use inmates in the kitchen, and pay inmate salary. So catering costs over about 600,000 a year. With the public-private partnership plan, this can be reduced to less than 300K. And this is something we can also bring to the table in terms of providing an inmate salary to approximately 75 cents per hour. Again, this is where legislation for the PPP and authorizing an inmate salary would be beneficial. So housing inmates outside of the CNMI. We have over 200 beds not being used. Okay. If we turn the 200 beds into revenue generating for the Department of Corrections, we could generate some money for the DOC. But again, I'm here to humbly ask the legislation to help with, maybe implementing something for carrying or proceeding with this plan. So current federal per diem for DOC is $82 per inmate per day. At 200 inmates at $82, that'll come out to approximately $16,400 a day, or $5.9 million per year. Again, we need legislation to allow DOC to charge for housing outside CNMI inmates. So I know I talked a little bit about this during my confirmation hearing, and in terms of potentially looking at housing some of the Guam inmates. We know Guam is hurting; they're overcrowded. We also know they have U.S. Marshal inmates who, especially after this typhoon, might need to be rehoused. Instead of sending them to Honolulu, why not send them to Saipan? Pay to stay, very controversial program. Still learning a lot about the pay to stay. However, for civil cases, traffic offenses, and misdemeanor offenses, it serves as a deterrence and ability to relieve taxpayers for inmates serving minimal and nuisance sentence. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Commissioner, for the presentation. I didn't know that. Obviously, personnel will be your number one cost. With your 157, what would be the projected, I guess, overtime? Is that adequate? Do we need to add a cycle again, and so forth, to reduce, obviously, overtime, which is the number one cost in your department?
Yeah, that's when we submitted the 2024 budget request, I factored a lot of those items in, those key items that I touched on, to include another academy. It's pretty evident that we're in dire need of another academy. But keep in mind that before I got on board, even maybe months before I got on board, overtime was averaging around 60,000 a month, maybe 60 to 65,000 a month. Since I came on and implemented some of the changes in the short amount of time, I've reduced that to maybe around 28,000 a month. Yeah, we're looking at about 28,000 a month. So roughly from 60, 65 to about 25, 28. We're making progress. I implemented the 4 shifts, and I also added my brass, or my command staff, to be in watch commanders and run those shifts as well. So we're en route. We're on the way. But yes, another academy, hopefully before the end of the year. This year would be ideal would definitely bring that down a lot more as well. Um, I hope that answered your question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I answered it
No,
totally,
no,
but
that's at least that's clear. And then there is progress to reducing overtime. Um, as you know, the Ways and Mean Committee has been tasked to fund other agencies, and we did notice a lot of vacant positions, and the committee needs to know if this or Department of Corrections is planning to fill these positions. Otherwise, we may have other plans for it.
oh, absolutely, we do have plans, and we're in we're in dire need to get that academy started. And in doing that, I'm as we're processing our plans. I mean, I'm again, I want to be a part of it as well. I want to be able to make time to teach and ensure that, uh, you know, with my experience, that certain things are implemented in the curriculum, and by being able to have the opportunity to speak on my experiences, my last 23 years in corrections, working in penitentiaries and, correctional institutions, we could we could get there. We could get there.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just a couple of more questions, and I'll open up to the members. And this is just follow up from the previous years of asking the questions with regards to the security camera, the AC system. Is it up and running, and how is the AC system? I guess replaced. Where are we at with that?
The AC system is it's they're all in the process of um, getting. We're addressing those inquiries, or we're also addressing the fire alarm, the sprinkler system. That's being worked on right now. It's just a little bit on pause. It's on pause because we're still waiting for the contractors to get some logistics in place before we move forward with that. But we're also we we're in the process. We've just completed an assessment for the surveillance. We had to kind of bring it back to the table because I was requesting for more cameras. There's many blind spots in the institution that isn't being covered, and when we brought it back, I had to increase it. So with the amount that we want to implement, so that's being worked on as well. Um, let's see. We
Is that through CIP still, or
Yes,
yes?
yes,
So
yes,
that's moving along.
yes. That's moving along.
Obviously, the camera is very important because of all the news of contraband and drugs being an
Absolutely.
issue. That needs to be addressed at the earliest. Um, and then with the utilities, I did notice that the administration hasn't allotted utilities, and uh, maybe Miss V can expound on that. How is the department gonna pay? Is it through reprogramming from the administration, or is something that we're still working on?
It's it's something that we've discussed yesterday on how to go about, the fund balances that we're trying to um, identify from the ARPA. Um, there's funds that are remaining, based on the balances that we've looked at. Um,
You mean the
and
revolving fund
well,
or
there's
just reimbursements?
they have the revolving fund, they have compact impact,
Okay.
and any reprogramming that the governor can address. Those That particular essential expense is priority for the administration, and including food
All right.
for the Department of
Okay.
Corrections.
So that's something that you'll be working with the administration because it's not budgeted.
Yes, it's not in the budget.
Okay. Um, with regards, I do admire, Commissioner, your thinking in possible housing inmates outside of the CNMI. I did remember a former representative by the name of Ray Yumo uh, wanted to do bring in Guantanamo Bay, and the community actually reacted a certain way, and that certainly ended. It's going to be a tough one for you because. Majority of our community is going to say, who are these people coming in, and are they, and the safety. So that's something that you have to consider. Is it I guess low security or high security, and that's something that we need to address before we move forward with your. I mean, it's a good proposal. I did remember my former representative you.
Sir, if I may add for that, yeah, I mean, if that's something we were to look at, it would be based on handpicked, nonviolent offenders, healthy, young. I mean, in a nutshell,
Right.
right? Healthy and nonviolent.
Right.
And we'll be again. I wanna add, we will handpick them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
uh,
So with regards to the for example, USCIS, I did remember in the past. The department said they were housing, I guess, federal detainees. Is there still some in corrections right now?
yes, there is. There's approximately about 10. Jack? We have approximately 10 martial inmates, and they pay us a per diem of approximately $85 per day. So I'm in the you know I, I'm in the process of negotiating for a higher rate,
Yes.
at least something to
Yeah,
equal
with
that
the
of Guam.
inflation going up and all
Yes,
that. Yes.
I mean, from what I'm gathering, Guam, you know, martial inmates in Guam are at 118.
Okay.
So, you know, um, yeah, we need to increase that. I'm going to work on renegotiating that amount.
Okay. And with regards to, let's say, are or does the judicial pay to the correct? Because doesn't work that way. Let me take that back. And I'll restructure my question. I'll offer it now to the floor as who any member, any member, no
Um,
member. Okay, I'll
Mr. Chairman.
recognize our member Manny Castro and then Representative Flores.
Thank you, Commissioner and staff, for being here today. I just really want to commend you for focusing on a lot of the root issues within your department and having some strategic and innovative plans to cut costs and improve outcomes. I hope more agencies will follow this lead in improving their organization. I I do agree with you on the inmate salary portion. I think there's a lot of opportunities to prevent recidivism within the CNMI if we have more programs for inmates and getting them ready to get back into the society for those that are going to be released in the near future. But for those that are in there for a while, we should have something for them to, because they still have families outside. At the same time, I look forward to working with you on improving the conditions for the staff, the guards, and everyone in the system from getting it to the point where it's lateral transfer. Like they can lateral transfer, but the goal is not to have them lateral transfer, but competitive enough to where their salary is comparable to peer organizations. Um, Also, thank you for working with NMTI and other educational institutions to get that kitchen to be to do more than just serve food, but to help inmates gain the skills, and at the same time opportunity. Again, I'm really thankful that you're in the post that you are, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Representative Castro. Representative Flores, and then Representative TJ.
So again, I'm going to echo that, we cannot speak here until you're recognized. And the last I checked, I didn't know that members have to go first prior to, but since, the chair has claimed that I'm an honorary member and I'm a woman, I guess I have to go second. So thank you, Chair, for recognizing me. I appreciate it. Um, Thank you so much for inviting me to visit the corrections facility. I think when we went through this whole process and through that visit, I was in awe in one particular area, which was the kitchen. And I also did pose that question when I was there. And you did mention in your slide and on my visit that you approximately spend and budget about $600,000 on catering alone. And this has been that way for the past 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, or 5 years.
Since,
Okay.
Since '08.
Since a long time ago.
Yeah, since
Okay.
'08, I think.
So 600,000 is a lot of money that you could surely utilize. That can be, budgeted for salaries, and what have you. And I did get a chance to see the equipment, and it is evident that it hasn't been used, I think, since it was purchased. Can you have you done an assessment on the depreciation value of all that equipment? Because it was roughly, when we spoke, about $1 million in equipment that was purchased for the corrections facility. And then because it hasn't been used, obviously you can't use it anymore, or can some of it be salvageable based on your plan to eventually utilize it again? That's my first question, sir.
So for that first question, we are in the process of making assessments
Okay.
to determine the amount that's going to be necessary. I've been with our maintenance individual, Lieutenant De Los Reyes. I almost said his first name, Lieutenant Albert. But he, we could do a Band-Aid version, which I'm not really inclined to doing, even though it's a lot less in cost. We're looking at about maybe close to 150,000 maybe for that Band-Aid version. But then that, you could potentially open up some other hazards, where if we did it, if we had to redo a lot of the repairing, and we're still waiting, it's forthcoming. We're still waiting on some of the other uh, estimates or assessments to make it to how it was from the beginning in day one from in 2008. And we're looking at maybe somewhere close to $1 million approximately. And you just touched on that. So anywhere from maybe 800,000 to $1 million to get it to the right way, instead of just putting band-aids on it. I'm not with that party of just putting band-aids on, but I also have to think of the budget and what we can do to get it. And it's basically just to kind of maybe give you a quick Cliff Note version of how I see operational. When I worked in Honolulu, when I started my career 20 years ago, I worked in a federal detention center. It's an administrative facility. Our DOC facility is like a mini administrative facility. It's not as big, of course, like the one in Honolulu, but we would be doing satellite feeding. So we would cook, inmates would cook, you'd have foremen or staff, sworn staff supervising the inmates while they're cooking. And we would have the freeze, chill, and then heat the next day when it's ready to be served, and it's satellite
Mhm.
feeding type system.
Okay.
So that's something that but as we get closer to that, then I would have to seek some professional experts to maybe come down and help me implement that satellite feeding.
Okay. All right. So obviously you can't just transition immediately, right? And we get that. That would be, a travesty because you still have to feed them. But moving forward, how long do you see this process taking effect? I mean, based on your timelines, right? On your goals and objectives in the next maybe 4 years, 5 years, within your tenure, hopefully.
Hopefully, I mean,
Okay.
I like to be an overachiever and shoot for a year. I don't know.
Okay.
You
Well, that's
know,
good. That gives me some hope.
maybe within a year, and also I I I failed to mention that once we get, I want to kind of paint a picture for you folks. We can get that kitchen up and running, and then
Mhm.
with Congressman Khalili's submission of the $1 million for the solar panels,
Mhm.
it's in the appropriations committee. If that gets through, we get that million, we get solar, and we get our kitchen up and running, and we utilize farm to table with the Department of Agriculture with local
Right.
produce and cattle. I mean, we're going to be saving,
More than 600,000.
absolutely. Thank you,
Okay.
Councilor.
So, so right now, because you will still be contracting for catering services, how does that process work? Um, do you request for an RFP, or is this something that just renews? You just renew it. What does that procurement process look like?
Yeah, currently the food service is a 2-year program,
Okay.
and that's with a catering company, and we're
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you. And when is that set, Miss Rita? When is that set to expire, or has it just been renewed?
Yeah, we're running a change order, and it's set to expire in April of 2024.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, my second question. When I was there, you guys don't do digital fingerprinting at booking. Why is that?
I'm gonna yield to my Lieutenant Jackson Bond touch on that.
Hello. Okay. Hi. Hi, Congressman. Currently, the digital print, the motherboard for the fingerprint,
Uh-huh.
it was actually sent over to the FBI for repair.
Okay.
And since then, we haven't got any feedback as to when we're getting it back. So
Okay.
until this day, we haven't got it.
Okay. Can you tell me how much that would cost, though, estimate? I mean, obviously the FBI is going to charge you to fix it, right? Or is this an MOU? How does this work?
Um, I am not really sure. I have to like go back and dig into my notes. I mean,
Okay.
I really don't know the specific of it.
Okay.
But all I know was the prints that we were using back in 2016, 2015, it just crashed.
Okay.
So when it crashed, we had some ITs come over and try to repair, but they couldn't. It
Okay.
was unsuccessful. So FBI came in, they offered their help.
Okay.
They took the motherboard, went to West Virginia, tried to repair it, and it was unsalvageable. And we were supposed to get it back, but we until now we don't have it back.
Can you give this committee, at least either my committee, the JGO or the Ways and Means Committee, maybe some update to that? Because that would be beneficial when you're receiving criminals, especially from overseas, right? That are here to visit, commit a crime. We don't know, right? But for just the community safety and to improve your service as a corrections facility, right? It would be beneficial. And if it's going to cost something, we'd like to know how much that's going to cost,
Yeah,
right?
I remembered our last conversation back in the tour. I mean, we are doing fingerprints, but manually, and because not everybody on island has access to our fingerprints, it's basically on request. So if an agency wants to like run a fingerprint, it's gonna probably take time because of the process where we have to identify certain suspect and we have to match print, and
Tedious.
it's it's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. Are you
So
guys trained for that?
no, like to compare
Manually
prints,
compare
no,
prints?
no, we are not. We are only taking prints, but as to getting the details, because there's certain qualification that or certification you need to
Right.
identify each print, and no, we're not qualified.
Maybe sending you guys to
So we have
Quantico
to
or
send
something.
everything off island.
Okay.
But to add to that that piece, you mentioned if we had foreigners that came in and they were arrested and they were
Mhm.
booked, like how do we run? Or if somebody came from California,
Mhm.
committed a few crimes, came over
Mhm.
here, we wouldn't know that he committed all these crimes, right?
Right.
But through NCIC, we don't have NCIC. In the federal system, we have that in place.
Mhm.
But again, the federal government, they have a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So the way for me to of thinking, being creative and having that here is again in the collaboration and forming relationships with specifically HSI, FBI. So you know, with HSI, we have somebody, and this is
Mhm.
something that we're going to work on, and I'm going to work on with Lieutenant Sablan. Somebody comes in and we don't know, we need an NCIC check. Boom, we just hit up HSI. They run it for us because they
Mhm.
have all that in place.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
And if I may, so that's why I think like we're here for budget
Mhm.
apparently. So I think just with my section alone, I think with the budget, I mean, we need more. I mean, we need more because basically we need a new jail management system.
Mhm.
We need a new digital system. We need to go from
Manual.
manual to digital so
To
we can all have access. So
right.
like the more the funds that we get to support, especially from
Right.
the processing side,
Right.
besides just giving us money for personnel,
Right.
but at least money to improve our system,
Right.
that would really help.
Okay.
Thank you.
So do you have a rough number and how much that will cost as far as equipment is concerned?
I'll be comfortable at 1 million.
Oof.
and Congressman,
Okay.
if I may add,
Well, better to start high, right? And then we can work our way down.
if I may add also, this system that Lieutenant Sablan is touching on it wouldn't just be for us. It would be something that we can maybe implement with police,
Right.
right? With police, they book somebody, they pull somebody over, they already could see that they were booked in DOC.
Yes.
It needs to be synchronized.
Right.
And I don't know if this was something that was introduced a while ago, but was like swept under the rug. But having this system in place is not just beneficial for us, but for the Department of Public Safety, Police Department as well.
I'm all about improving systems, and again, I commend you. So my last question before they tell me that my time is up. So my last question is equipment, right? So and MOUs. Are you guys now in an MOU kind of like a situation with the court system? So you book them. How does this whole marriage work together? And if there is an MOU, can you tell me a little bit about that? And if it works or it doesn't work as far as transport people to the courthouse, bringing them back and all of that. And what does that look like?
So basically, a person gets arrested.
Mhm.
They get booked in. They get served. If they get remanded, they get served a Rule 5 or come in on a arrest warrant. So basically, it's just us and the court communicating via telephone or emails,
Mhm.
saying that they have a court hearing,
Mhm.
and whatever documents they provide, I make sure to put in their jacket or their
Mhm.
file
Mhm.
and keep it up to date. So any recent orders from the court, I make sure that it's up to date with the individual's file.
Okay, so assuming that it wasn't up to date 5 years ago, right? Because you're doing things manually.
Manually, I am up to date.
Okay, that's good to know. So you've been there doing that
Yes,
for a long
that
time.
yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
that's so that's comforting. Okay, now that we know that, then that's great. So how much would it cost? Just let me know how much that costs you, Commissioner, to transport a detainee to the hospital back. I mean, the whole thing from work, um, gas, hours, everything. How much does that cost you?
know, Congresswoman, we'll work on that
Okay.
data. We'll gather that and we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
But yeah, that is a great question.
Thank you. I yield. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. So we do have an MOU with like the feds.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a rate for transportation. So
Okay.
it's 2 officers per inmate
Okay.
times what? 15.25 now an hour.
Okay.
15.75 an hour
Okay.
times the miles. The
Okay.
mileage. Yeah.
So that's only for federal.
Federal.
What
yeah.
about
we
local?
We don't charge for locals.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, there we go.
Yeah, maybe we can
Cons-
come up with a
consider that.
legislation
Yeah.
to.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I yield.
Thank you, Rep Flores. Rep uh, uh, TJ. Then Rep Sablan.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, Commissioner Torres and team. I know you brought up it would cost about 250,000, right, to get that kitchen running. Do you guys have any sort of estimated cost to run the facility versus how much it costs to cater?
That exact figure, sir, I don't, it's a lot less than 600,000 a year, that's for sure. With a lot of the systems and with the plans and the systems that we want to implement, it'll definitely be a lot lower than 600K a year. So, um,
Okay, thank you for that. Also, is there any existing sort of pay or job structure within the DOC currently? No.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that last part. Pay.
Are they able to earn any like funds? I know you. I'm sorry, I was a little late. I was watching it on the live, but you did mention something about them earning some sort of wage. Is there anything like that that exists currently?
Not currently. No, no, not currently. Again, that's something we would, we want to bring to the table. And as soon as we get those inmates in place to work in the kitchen and maybe even potentially with coordinating with maybe Department of Public Works, it, we have that dialogue. So, but I guess, but we don't have it in place right now.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys thinking outside the box. That's. I think we should move forward with those kind of things because it kind of incentivizes it right a little bit.
Absolutely.
Is there any sort of like canteen that exists within the?
Yes, there is. Yes.
So at the moment they just get I guess funding from their relatives or that's how they purchase outside commodities.
Yes. Yes. And the deposit amount, I believe, is 200. Is it $200 a day? $200, 200 max every week. I believe. Oh, every government week.
Okay, thank you. Forgive me, I'm not too familiar with how the system works. So I'm trying to gather information. Also, is there any sort of rehabilitation programs that currently exist within the DOC, other than or maybe like getting their degrees or?
Well, that's all forthcoming. But right now, when I first got on, it was more focused on security, prioritizing that. And now that we're kind of like getting to that point, we've started religious services to include Catholic, Christian, Grace Christian Academy, Jehovah Witness, and then we also have our outreach program that's down the road, and they are partnering with NMTI, NMTech, and they have approximately 10 inmates that's in the second they're in the electrical engineering portion. And in addition to that, they're also are going around and providing grounds maintenance for a lot of the government buildings in areas, and they're also working on their construction skills by renovating and all these projects. So they're busy, they're kept busy, and you know maybe a little bit later, forthcoming again, working on getting them licenses and certification so that when they're done serving their time, when they get out, they have something to show for. And that's where that NM Tech piece it plays a huge role. But in addition to that, I'd like to maybe, something with CDL licensing certification, something of that sort. Because I mean, we know, the CW situation is approaching, so we want to do what we can. DOC wants to do what we can to kind of prepare for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's definitely part of kind of helping these guys out is the rehabilitation aspect, and I think that's what's been missing for the longest time here. Um, Other than that, I know you guys were mentioning the fingerprint system. Have you guys looked into any sort of federal funding that might be available um, to integrate that technology?
We've we've been reaching out to other people to assist with our situation. So basically, we need to find a system that's uh, up to par with the DOJ standards, like Department of Justice standards. So we cannot just go anywhere and just pick random companies to come over and give us their software. But it has to be within standards. So yeah, we are currently looking, and hopefully we can get some assistance in the near future.
And to add to that, yes, we are also constantly looking for grant opportunities. We're in constant discussion with technical grant writers, and it's forthcoming. We want to get prepared for the first quarter of 2024, which is like grant season. I'm learning a lot about grants. I never had to deal with grants in the federal system because they ran out of money. They just print more, right? But for us, thinking outside of the box, applying for grants. I mean, and it, and from what I've learned, a lot of money was left in the table in the last, I don't know, last administration, and we're here to change that.
Awesome, thank you guys, and maybe that's something that again you can probably collaborate with DPS on. Pretty sure they would they would benefit from that system as well. Thank you, and I just wanted to commend you guys too for the efforts that you guys are doing with the typhoon relief. I was just there to drop off some donations the other day, and your guys were very helpful. So thank you on that, and I yield for now. Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Congressman TJ, Congressman John Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Commissioner, and to your team. I want to applaud you for working very hard to drop the overtime costs from what you mentioned as 65,000 to what is now at 20 some thousand. So my question to that uh, is how many more personnel is needed to even drop it even further, or hopefully even zeroing out the overtime costs?
Anywhere from 30 to 50. I'm just gonna shoot for a high number, 50. I'll be,
50 extra
sworn
personnel.
personnel. Yes. And
Because
and, and,
and the reason why I asked, because I was just looking at your worksheet here, and you have about 20 some vacant positions. So just wanted to figure out. So with this 20 some position, and then an additional 10 would be suffice to even drop this overtime costs. Is that correct?
yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for your response. My next question, can you expound more on how is it that housing inmates outside of the cinema could be a revenue generating for DOC? I mean, I didn't catch how much per inmate are you going to be charging? Just from your experience, can you expound more?
Okay. Um, just to kind of give you a breakdown, you know, we could probably house, if we acquired more beds, and we equipped it to have some cells be double cell, because not all cells are designed for double cells, for double bunk. I'm sorry, double bunk. Um, you know, but once we once we are done with our repair. Oh, and that's another thing I wanted to add, and I failed to mention earlier was I need I need to get my juveniles out of the adult facility. I need to get them out of there so I can run the prison the way it should run. Right now we're doing our very best to comply with the sight and sound. Now, with that said, you know, anytime a juvenile is moving, everything ceases, everything stops, and we average anywhere from 2 to 4 juveniles in that one pod. And in that one pod, we can house approximately 130 inmates, maybe a little bit more once we equip some of those cells to have 2 bunks. So besides the kitchen, the number one priority on my plate is to get my juveniles rehoused into a temporary facility, at least, at the very least, and then work towards a permanent facility. And then we can work on addressing the kitchen. And then while we're addressing the kitchen, we're addressing surveillance. We're getting the solar system, solar panels, and everything. So again, I apologize for not mentioning that in the beginning, but yes, getting my juveniles out of there, but continuing to oversee them.
So from experience, if we have the opportunity to house outside inmates, how much per inmate? Because we have to factor in the food that you're going to be feeding these inmates, and before we even think that it's a revenue generating process.
We can use an easy number. Let's say $100 per inmate. $100 for 100 beds. That equates to what? $10,000 a month times 12. Um, you know, these are just some of the things. I mean, the exact numbers I don't have offhand, but if you can kind of maybe, run those numbers, we have potential to generate revenue. But before we even can get to that point, I need to rehouse my juveniles, and I need to get the facility to where it needs to be with the kitchen. And, these are different moving parts, different segments. You know, we don't just put them in the cell and lock them up. Now, we maybe back in the day, but not now. We got to rehab these individuals so they can come back out and be productive citizens in our society.
Thank you for your response. And my last question I thank you for your efforts on rehabbing all these inmates. But are there any programs of like GED or PSS programs that so that that you are working on so that when we get these guys out of the back to society? I mean, we want them. We don't want them coming back. So, what are the programs that you are working with other or partnering with other agencies for that matter?
And yes, sir. That's forthcoming. We would we would like to implement a GED like a GED type program in collaboration with NMC or PSS, and in providing that. So say somebody, um, what is it? Reentry begins at the first day of incarceration, right? Reentry begins on that day. So they come in, depending on the severity of their crime, right? They could either, if they're absolutely a danger to society, they're higher in security, we still need to provide them with some type of rehabilitation. They came in with no high school degree, then they can sign up for getting their GED. So once we have that's forthcoming, sir. um uh you know
Thank you for your response, Chairman Ayut, for now.
Thank you, Rep Sablon. We'll have Rep Danita now.
Thank you, Chair. Um, I don't know if you, I don't know if I missed this one, but I noticed for utilities, your request for utilities was not granted, right? By the governor's proposal. So why is that? Do you receive grants or something for utilities or?
and to my understanding, that's something we're going to be working with OMB, the government.
So utilities was not allocated in any of the executive branch departments or agencies. However, in the independent program, there is a $1.8 million allocated for utilities, and that would be shared by all of the department, aside from the governor using his authority to reprogram and use other sources as well. So it's there.
Okay, thank you. I want the people to hear that because I don't want them to panic that it might come from their paychecks. And then the other one is morale. Um, about when was that? Last week or so? I saw in the newspaper an officer who had master's degree and Top Gun and all those stuff. I think that's really good, right, for the morale of the officers. But do you also increase their salary for that when they receive those recognitions or certificates?
We're working on that, ma'am. We're working on that. One of our staff completed her master's degree, and we want to encourage our all of our staff to continue their education and provide incentives for them as well. So yes, and to the question of morale, um, you know, I'm walking and talking to everyone. I have an open door policy. We had a correctional workers week, which for the first time, I believe it was our first time, and it was phenomenal. I mean, there's improvements like anything, but it's going to be better next year, and then the year after that. And you're starting to see, and you feel the energy. You know, again, I'm going to commend my staff. All of this is my staff. I'm God brought me back home to lead this department, and but it's my staff that come together, that every day being there and giving it all their got. I mean, I got my staff out there at the multi-purpose center, and I'm a little choked up because it feels good to help our neighbors in Guam, Rhoda, and they're out there in the hot sun. After this, I'm going back out there with them, and I'm just proud. I'm really proud of them, and I'm proud that everybody's working together. And again, like any department has issues, but it's how we address them, and how we, as a leader, I'm learning a lot about myself as being in this position, and I'm very grateful and honored.
Oh, is that officer with you today the one who was in the newspaper? We want it on record.
Officer Lizama, to our right, completed her master's degree.
Top Gun.
and Top Gun. Yes, she can shoot, and she's very smart.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Rep. Danita. And I'll now recognize for the first round Rep. BJ, then Rep. Angelo, then Rep. Flores, then we'll go for the second round.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner and team, thank you for joining us this morning. Just on federal funds, how much do you guys receive annually?
So are you referring to the marshals, for the marshal inmates that we're housing, or?
Uh, I know you shared the Marshall inmates. What about the external federal funds that go directly to the Department of Corrections?
Okay. Hi. So we have a revolving account, the 3022, and that's where all like the U.S. Marshals, the ICE, Bureau of Prisons.
So that's the only,
That's the only
and it
account
goes to the
outside the
revolving
local.
account. How much
Yes.
is in the revolving account currently?
Currently, I believe we have about 115, 120,000.
Currently, how
Currently.
much is the annual?
It really
I know it
depends.
fluctuates,
Yeah,
but
it
give me a
fluctuates.
rough number.
About 100,000 as well.
100,000, and that money is pretty much flexible, or to address just the marshal or the inmates from the federal side.
It's flexible. It's
Flexible money?
reimbursement to the local.
Okay,
Yes.
so how much of CJPA funds do you guys receive?
Um, we have not received any from CJPA.
So the courts have never shared CJPA funds with you guys?
3,000. Oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, recently we applied for a grant through
through CJPA?
CJP, and the JET grant, and we
Okay.
received 3,000.
$3,000.
Yes. Out
Okay,
of
that's
what?
not going to help.
I know.
With the compact impact monies that you guys receive, are your statistics up to date with the Department of Commerce? I'm asking this because it's formula based, and OMB, it's very difficult for them. They're just running on a formula base, and a lot of people blame OMB and the legislature for the amount of money that goes to corrections or other entities. But we're also dependent on the statistics that you guys provide the Department of Commerce, because it's the U.S. side that determines that number. It's based on statistics that they will run with. I'm just hoping that our statistics with the Department of Corrections is up to date.
I believe so. I think it's up to date, and normally Director Georgia Cabrera compiles the compact impact reports, and we're pretty up to date in submitting those.
Okay. And do you know if the other departments that get compact impact money are up to date?
Other departments, I'm not sure. You might need to ask Ms. Vicky.
It's not right, because this is important. You take like DPS, for example. They pick somebody up, have them for like 10 minutes. Then they send them to you guys. You guys hold them for 3 months. But DPS gets 500,000 and you guys get 25,000.
Oh, yes, and I think Ms. Vicky did discuss that with us, and that's why she's giving us more than what goes to DPS.
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate because we're blaming it's blame false on OMB for this, and it's not fair to them because they're just depending on the statistics that you guys provide. And if you guys provide certain numbers and the other entities using old numbers, guess what? They're always going to receive a bigger chunk because they're running on the basis of previous numbers, just like when corrections was under DPS, right? So everybody's just relying on DPS's numbers. Now, even though you're separated from DPS now, if they're still using old numbers, statistically, you're always going to lose, right? And sorry, OMB, you were going to.
I was just going to say that in FY 2022, the corrections received 450,000 in allocation for compact impact, and we've expense transferred 235,000. So there is still available a little bit over 200,000 for corrections to utilize. And I believe that we have informed them that they can use that account. In FY 2023, we anticipate to make an amendment to what was originally proposed, another 250,000. However, we're going to allocate 780,000, and we're going to request the Department of Interior, OIA, to make that amendment for the corrections, because that can help support for the cost of food for the Department of Corrections. Now in FY24, we anticipate some data from all of the participating agencies that provide service to FAS citizens.
That's really great news. There's your 200 some $1,000 for your kitchen right there. So, and it's not strictly for FAS, but it's going to provide for FAS citizens. So I think we took care of the kitchen part. Now we got to take care of the other part.
Sir, that maybe that we can add that to the million. So we're 800,000. We need
Yeah.
800,000 more.
To the holding cells for the juveniles. I know that we had spoke outside of this, Commissioner, that you were looking at the building next to the correction facilities between you guys and the Department of Public Safety. What's the cost that you're looking at for that?
I'd say roughly 60,000. And I say that, and I mean, in a perfect world, I'd say 100, but, given that we're in this situation, 60K, because then I'd be able to utilize my outreach program crew to assist with the demolition, construction, renovation. I mean, I have my resources that I can utilize, so I'm not going to shoot for a high number on that, but I would say honest, yeah, 60. And, that should be a safe number.
Okay, so 60,000. Well, okay, we got your kitchen taken care of. We'll work on getting the $60,000 from another source to get to you guys. The sooner we get that done, how quick do you think we can realize in upgrading or prepping the cells that they were being held in to capacity that corrections has right now, so we can also work on your other plans to get more monies into correction?
Let me process that for a second. I don't know, maybe 3 months, 3 to 6 months. I would be
Okay.
overachiever. 3 months, six
No, I
months.
mean, I'm asking this because you have a contractual agreement already until next year, April 2024, regarding the catering, right? And if we can take care of the kitchen within the next 6 months, we only have to worry about a couple more months with the catering costs, right? We can work to take care of the juvenile holding cell. You open up the remaining cells. We can also work at the same time on that legislation after we take care of the juvenile holding cell within the next 6 months, and work towards another type of funding source to help corrections and its ability, so that the next year's budget, we're not looking at corrections asking for $1 million or $1.6 million. Now we're going to be on the same level. Then everything else is just fat on the muscles for corrections.
So I'd say 6 months. 6 months is a safe, a safe estimate.
All right, so we're dependent on OMB's transfer and Department of Interior's transfer for the kitchen. We'll take care of the juvenile facility, and then we can work on the legislation. And hopefully, at this same period, that there's a cycle going in for corrections, and you'll be full staff by this time next year.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so yeah, let's work on that. I think it's realistic. We got numbers at least that are thrown out that we can work towards. So there's goals. Do we? Have you guys worked with? I know that the fingerprint issue that Rep Marissa and Rep TJ are talking about. Have you guys worked? Are you guys a member of the Fusion Center? It's the Department of Corrections. Do you have membership with the Fusion Center here in the CNMI under Homeland Security?
I'm sorry, sir. The Fugitive Center?
Fusion Center.
Fusion. No, we're not, sir. I'm not aware of
No.
that. Not familiar with it either.
Okay. So maybe that's something we can talk about, and those guys can try to assist you guys with the fingerprint, the electronic system for the facilities, and maybe if they can, then that takes away the $1 million that you were asking for.
That would be
So-
awesome.
No, so I know former Rep Clyde Manrita is back there. Is very well aware of what the Fusion Center is. No, so I yield for now. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to your team.
Thank you, Rep. Ato, Rep Angelo.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, Commissioner and team. I just have one question. It's gonna be very quick because I'm kind of getting hungry already. But part of your operations cost, does that include like supplying your outreach program with like as far as like fuel and equipment and whatnot?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay, and do you feel like it's like enough? Because I'm just trying to see if we can further expand their hands. Uh, you know, Rep Manny and I were just having a little short conversation, saying maybe we could possibly minimize the DPW and the mayor's office, and maybe look into possibly assisting us in within the precincts as well. I know they have been coming out a lot. They've assisted me personally, and it was a really good outcome for the school. Um, but yeah, I was just trying to figure out how we can assist you guys to see how we can further expand their program. I strongly feel like it's a really good program for the inmates, and I hear a lot of good stuff about the program. So just curious.
Yeah, Congressman, that would be amazing to expand on that, because they the outreach program, they report directly to me, and I chose it that way because they're actively out there in the community, And, you know, we have some agencies that uh, are very are very willing to help with offsetting some of those fuel costs, and they're also very kind in providing some refreshments for the participants and the staff. So yes, anything, we're very open to anything and everything that can help expand the program, sir.
Thank you. Just one more, please. Just one more, real quick, since he's not paying attention. But anyways, so I know Congressman Representative Attal mentioned about your AC units. I do know you guys are working closely with Homeland Security and Public Assistance Office. Are you guys able to find your cost share, your local match already, or is that still pending? The 10% matching.
Okay. The 10%.
Mhm.
I think we can take care of the 10%
Okay.
with our 3022 account.
Okay.
Yes.
So it should be. You mentioned that it's on the ongoing. The
The project is still ongoing. Yes, it's still open.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just trying to follow up because I kind of, we met a couple times, and I just wanted to see what the update was, and I'm glad to hear that it's moving forward. So, thank you.
Yes.
Chairman, are you?
Thank you, Rep Angelo, Rep Flores, Joe, and then we'll go for the second round.
Good morning, Commissioner. Commissioner, just regarding your overtime, you mentioned that you're accruing overtime, a lot in overtime in your facility or your correction. What's the cost of incurring overtime?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that last part of the question.
Yeah, what's the cost of you incurring much payment of overtime than the regular shift in your section or your correction? Incurring of overtime. You said you're spending a lot on
Yeah.
paying out overtime. What's the cost of you paying out overtime?
It specifically, I'm not sure if I'm going to answer the question quick, but it's the shortage of manpower. So we're running 4 shifts now, and we're still we my staff is being very flexible. We're trying to figure out our systems, put systems in place where we have these schedules that I sign and that are put out every couple weeks. And when people call in sick, people are sick, right? Or people take annual leave when they do, and there are holes that need to be filled. The watch commanders are are required to fill those slots with overtime. They can hire, in a sense, they're able to hire overtime. They're actively looking for individuals to fill for the next shift. That's part of being a watch commander. That's how it was in the federal system. There was no way to get out of. I mean, it was always, overtime was always there. Even though they reduced it, it was there. But they had a system in place to fill the essential positions during the shift.
How many personnel per shift do you have how you got 4 shifts, right? How many personnel per shift?
Ideally, we want 24, 22 to 24 per shift, and that would give us a decent amount. And again, in a perfect world, 30 to 35. Once if we were to be close to max capacity, that's if we were at max capacity, but we're not. Fortunately, we're at a low number, at approximately 180 inmates. So, we're dealing with what we got, and another academy would definitely help offset the overtime.
Okay, so I don't know, is it, I'm a retired police officer too, but probably in Perceive we go by sectors, and I've never been into I've been to correction, but how do you disseminate your personnel in your building as to the 25% personnel per shift. So what I'm trying to allude is, what's your minimum personnel per shift that's required for you to operate in that day, and what's your max?
22. What's the 22? At this time, 24 would be the max. 24 would be the max. Monday through Friday, we got admin there, so it helps. It's mainly like after hours and on the weekends that we find that we need to hire overtime more, and we're getting there. I mean, we brought it. Clearly, we brought it from 65 to about 20, 26, 27, 28. I mean, that's progress in and of itself. But hope that answered your question, sir.
So okay, just to make, because regarding this overtime, just to disseminate amount parts, and you requested additional 30. What I'm trying to do this is to make sure that if there's a set 24 that day and there's only 18 came in, does your procedure, would it be feasible and is mandated for you that you wouldn't, this with the inmates, that your manpower is sufficient enough to operate, rather than coming up to make sure that it's always 24 to reduce the overtime? Because what it's basically, your personnel are in the building. Is that the difference between you and the police officers? They're outside, they're patrolling. It's self-contained. You're trying to minimize, because you guys can lock up the inmates and say, wait, because we're short of manpower, we can come back to you. If it's an emergency, you're going to be there, because this is what's happening for our shift. It's just to minimize them, trying to get to the numbers that we're going to try to cut down on the hours. Because sometimes there's a practice that the supervisor comes in because he's saying 24. He wants to make sure 24, because wants to make somebody come into overtime. We just do. It's just something to alleviate that. So we just have to add numbers that, hey, if it's a need, we'll do it. But if it's just a one, we don't want to do it. That's what basically we try to. It's just for you to take a look at it. I'm not telling you what to do, but it's just something that we look at to decrease the.
Okay. Yes, I absolutely. I get that piece, sir. You know, corrections and police, both law enforcement, but very, very different. Um, you know, we got to deal with sick leave, right? People get sick, their families get sick. When they don't come in, we're short. Yes, we can lock the inmates up, and we can contain and then address, but we're not as flexible as police. You know, they're very different, but we're both law enforcement, but we both work together. And and I invite you, I invite everyone here, come and see how we operate and see the operations. And in my 23 years, there was always overtime. It's gonna be it's gonna be very, very challenging to get it to zero. Yes, in a perfect world, that would be awesome. But gosh, yeah, that's another academy would probably maybe decrease that to 15. Maybe I'm overachieving again. Maybe 10,000. I don't know. But again, we gotta be mindful and be aware that, again, people get sick, people go on medical leave, people get hurt. Things happen. Things happen, and we need to be able to be flexible and open minded in how we you know mitigate the overtime.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that we were never gonna minimize to stop the overtime, but we can minimize it.
Thank you, Rep Flores. So we're at the 11:30 hour. Uh, so on this second round, we're gonna try to minimize. I know we have another hearing at 1, so we wanna pretty much wrap up, and uh, I'll go for the second round. So Rep Flores for the second round.
Thank you so much, Chair. I really appreciate it. Thought I was going to wait for the last minute of 11:55. Thank you. So I only have one question, maybe two, but I'm kind of feeling the wrath over there from my chairman, so I'll just keep it to one. The recording device, does that work when inmates get visited by their attorneys, or the inmate gets visited by the civilian? Do you have recording systems that record conversations, typically like they do in any corrections facility?
Our telephone system is being recorded.
Okay.
It prompts the person saying that the telephone call is being recorded.
Okay.
As far as our building, it's surveillance 24/7.
Okay. All right. And then I noticed that there was a JVA on the newspaper today about the mental health court starting its process. Are you involved in any way? I know that, Commissioner, you've been very innovative, thinking outside the box. Are you invited to these conversations in terms of the mental health court and how Department of Corrections is going to be a part of this? Only because you mentioned that there's a shortage, right? So we don't know what this rehabilitation process looks like as far as the mental health court is concerned. But are you in the process of this discussion, since it's a new court? There's going to be a lot of new things happening with addressing the individuals that will be processed through this court system. Are you in collaboration or even involved in the discussion?
Not myself, but there is Officer Eva who's representing DOC for mental health court. So
Okay.
she's going on a weekly staffing with mental health court. So it's yes, we are involved with mental health.
Okay. But the recording system does work on the telephones.
Yes, ma'am.
How much does that cost you to keep that up and running?
I am.
No cost?
It's no cost to the facility, and that's the NIC communication system that was installed for the telephones.
Okay.
Like Lieutenant Sablan added, they are recorded.
Okay.
And also, I'd like to share with this honorable committee that I'm in talks with the NIC individuals out in Texas who provided that system. We're also looking at implementing these kiosks for the inmates who can video conference with their family members, and not only that, but also looking to with that it'll assist us in being PREA compliant. PREA compliant is Prison Rape Elimination Act compliant, where you know if something were to happen in that section and there were no officers there, they could easily utilize that PREA section or duress to say, hey, this is what's going on. They'll type it through email. It'll go to internal affairs or special investigative services. And that kiosk is en route.
Mhm.
And before I go to the next one, which is where we're looking at also, is implementing these tablets for the inmates to have. Now, I know I want you to it's at no cost to us.
Mhm.
So once that arrives, and if we do decide to pilot that, which I'm really looking at us piloting, it's going to be utilized as a management tool.
Okay.
It's like the phones, right? We all know how our kids are with their phones, right? We wanna give them consequences. We take that phone away. They don't like that. It'd be the same concept with the inmates. And in those tablets, again, there are incentives. We can implement programming or some type of educational type stuff in addition to maybe movies as incentives. And it's a tablet that they would have.
Okay.
And if they were to, if they were to get into an incident, they would go to a segregation unit, and being in that segregation unit, the tablet's taken away. So
Okay, so I would hope that you would have those safeguards available and that whatever's in the tablet are, highly under protections and say firefoxes and whatever else you have, right, to protect their access towards other things, right? My last question, real quick. A couple months ago, I had an incident with an individual who was taken in, who had suffered or who was identified, legally identified as having paranoid schizophrenia. And currently, it states that depending on what the crime or what the person called 911 for, they go over there, assess the situation, and if it is a, let's say, disturbing the peace situation, right? They take the individual, but because I guess Department of Corrections can't house individuals with mental health issues, they are taken into the CHCC, held for a 72-hour period. And then upon the expiration of the 72-hour period, they're now moved back into the regular community, right? Until such time, again, they are assessed and called for disturbing the peace or what have you. Is that still currently happening right now in this case where they can't go into DPS? I'm sorry, not DPS,
And ma'am,
DOC.
yes, it's unfortunate, but they need to be cleared at CHC. And maybe it's something that legislation working with CHC can work to expand on their mental health intakes and providing more than just 72 hours care for addressing these mental health needs. Because, why would we, what did they get back, go to the community and they do something violent? Then now we have to take them. And that's kind of a disservice, in my opinion, to the community. We need to maybe revisit that and take a look at how we can improve on CHC's mental health, units.
Okay, thank you for that. And our office or the JGO committee would be more than happy to, work with you on this now that the mental health court is starting in its infancy, right? Thank you so much, Commissioner. I appreciate your time and your team's time. I yield.
Thank you, Representative. Any further? Offer you the floor to do your closing statement or from anyone if you choose so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and this honorable body. I want to thank each and every one of you for your time and for the opportunity for us to speak with you today. Again, thank you. Part of my mission is to lead with transparency, and I invite anyone in this honorable body to come down and take a tour. Come have a conversation. I'm always there. I'm always open. My duty, my role is to work with you folks here, and with the Senate as well, so we can so we can all work towards the greater mission of DOC and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that. And with that, if there's no further under announcement, we will continue this afternoon at 1 p.m. with the Department of Commerce. And with that, I now move to adjourn for this budget hearing. Thank you.